So today we continue the same subject, methods, approaches, and techniques of teaching English. So far, you have some webinars on this subject, and I'm sure you know a lot, so please share your ideas. So first of all, just we review what is approach. Let's talk about the differences between approach, method, and techniques. Approach actually refers to theories about the nature of language and language learning. So it's like way of thinking theories. So it describes how people acquire their knowledge of the language. And it describes the theory of philosophy underlying how language should be taught. Here I put the address for a very nice article about it that later I put it in the chat box as well. I put the link in the chat box for you guys. It's not a very long article, but it's really useful to go through it. So there are different approaches of teaching English, like structural approach, communicative approach, situational approach, oral approach, and eclectic approach. For example, communicative approach. Do you have any ideas what it refers to or what's it about? Have you ever heard of it? Any of the students?
Communicative approach, it's like talking with the people and do the communication so that you can learn English easily or you can learn the second language easily. When you communicate, then you understand that what the other person is speaking or saying or trying to convey their message through their actions, through their maybe that is verbal and non-verbal both.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So in communicative approach, it develops speech habits of the students. It stresses most of the skill of language. Activities are very important. It's a student-centered. Teachers' role is like facilitator, manager, and guide. It's not dictating everything for the students, but monitoring, helping the student, because the class is student-oriented, okay, student-centered. And no interference of grammar. It's based on function side of the language. So basically, hello Shazia, good to have you here. So basically, it means that the students learns the functions for making communication. And the other approach, multitask approach. Do you have any ideas what's it about?
It's about making your students doing multitasking, like giving them everything and then they perform well. Like don't uh, don't concentrate on only one thing. It should be reading, writing, speaking, conversing, everything comes in that approach.
Very good, excellent. So in multi-skill approach, as you said, linguistic skills are important, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And it's focused on individual mastery, school-based, skill-based activities. So they have some activities to improve their listening, to improve their speaking, to improve their reading and writing. Lots of practice because the student should be master of that skill. And there's a logical sequence and selection of skills. So first they study, they have input, then they get output. So input like listening and reading. They see the samples, they learn the vocabulary, they practice the structure part, they practice the context. Then they will be asked for the output. So they're going to talk about it and write about it. So here are some examples of approaches. But what about method? What do you think? What is the definition of method? What do you think method means?
which technique you will apply it, or which strategy you will apply on your students so that they will learn that English language or they can converse or speak that language. Maybe it's direct method or maybe it's other method, maybe it's written method or maybe it's just verbal method.
Bravo, bravo.
Hello,
So,
hello, ma'am. I'm Shazia. Good evening.
yes, please go ahead.
Can I tell you the definition of a method? It is a
Definitely.
way of uh, it is a way of something to attempt. It is a way to something. It is a way of something to apply. It is a meth. It is it is something to apply on something. Method is basically a way out to achieve something.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you. It's a method is a way of applying that approach. So approach was the thought, was the theory. We want to put it in the action. We need methods. So then it's a time to talk about syllabus, progressions, kind of materials and these things. It comes towards method. Very good. So there are different methods of teaching English or teaching language, like grammar translation method, direct method, audio lingual method, TPR, silent way, CLT, eclectic method, and so far I know in previous webinars you study about some of them. So
What is TPR stands for?
total physical response. We're going to review it. We're going to review it.
All right. All right.
So in GTM, grammar translation method, which is a classical method of teaching language, the purpose was reading the foreign literature and help the students to learn the structure part, the grammar part. The goal was teaching grammar. Hello, Salina. Good to have you here. We're talking about approaches, methods, and techniques. So in GTM, the goal is teaching grammar and vocabulary to familiarize the students with foreign literature and the mental challenge. What is the role of teacher? Teacher is the authority and the students will do as the teacher says. So it's teacher-centered. Teacher is the top in the class, head of the class. Teach, ask the student to do their activities and they follow what the teacher said. Students even can translate to their mother tongue. Mostly text, they have to translate. Grammar is taught explicitly and deductively. So they learn the rules and then they follow the rules and do the exercises. Students will memorize grammar and vocabulary. There's almost zero student-to-students interaction in this method, and all the interactions are teacher-to-student. Main attention is on reading and writing, and speaking and listening are completely neglected. So what about evaluation? It's done by translation from the target language and to their mother tongue. And the technique that they use, translation, reading comprehension, synonym and antonym, composition, and memorization. So what happened, actually, none of the students could communicate. So the opposite method is direct method. Also, it was kind of immersion, it's based on immersion theory. In this DM method, direct method, it's mostly based on communication. So translation, therefore, translation was prohibited and everything was done in target language. So basically, if you teach Spanish, the class whole in Spanish, no matter what you study. Even you study maths in Spanish, geography in Spanish, art in Spanish. All texts are in Spanish, videos, audios, everything is in Spanish. So what was the role of the teacher? Teacher directs everything. Students are less passive. So it's like teachers and students are like partners. The characteristics of this method, they use realia, audiovisual aids, pantomime, miming, and no translation, of course. Syllabus is designed open situations. So basically, teacher put the students in a situation, in a context, and they start thinking about that, activate their background knowledge, and they learn new item of the lessons, like vocabulary structure or reading the context, listening to the listener likewise. Grammar is taught inductively, not directly. So they start from examples, putting in the context, they understand the usage, then they learn the rules. There's no use of L1, first language. And although all skills are important, vocabulary and pronunciation are emphasized stronger. So there's no evaluation in common sense. The aim is the students can communicate in that language, in the target language. So what techniques? Like ask and answer, filling the blanks, or reading and then talking about it. Let me share you a very short video about immersion. Give me a minute. So, there you go. Please watch it.
Immersion education is a model in which students learn subject matter using the target language as the vehicle. But what does that really mean? So in a typical classroom environment, students learn the core subjects in English. They might also receive some foreign language, but only for a short period of time. This is an ineffective way to learn an additional language. In an immersion classroom, students learn all the core subjects in the foreign language. What are the advantages of this teaching model? Faster and native language level acquisition in reading and writing, higher test scores, and superior cognitive skills, just to name a few. There are many types of immersion programs. Some will only have 50% of their school day in the language, and others may go as high as 100. The higher the percentage, the faster you will notice language improvement. Time in the foreign language and English can be divided by alternating weeks and days, or even mornings and afternoons. When students are learning in two languages at the same time, it is important they build upon and reinforce concepts that do not repeat lessons. Teaching the same lesson in, say, Spanish, then again in English, would defeat the purpose of an immersion education. The brain would learn the content in one language and transfer it over. To minimize overlap, target language and English teachers work together to develop lesson plans and activities. An immersion program is only as good as its teachers. The best programs have highly skilled teachers who are always bettering themselves through professional development. Keeping students of all language levels engaged requires creative instruction. Immersion classrooms are not sit at your desk and do work classrooms. Teachers create high-energy environments using interesting topics, visuals, and activities. All this requires hours of planning and prep throughout the year. That's what makes teachers the rock stars of immersion education.
Thank you very much for sharing your experiences and ideas.
Thank you.
Okay, so what about audio? Yeah, it's based on the first method that it's mainly focused on communication. It was the first method based on psychological and linguistic approach. It was mainly focused on communication, audiolingual, so they hear and they talk. And it was built on behaviorism. Students were believed to be bombarded with new information to be able to communicate without thinking about it. They become very fluent. So they actually drill a conversation. They said it 100 times. So basically, without thinking, whenever they heard, "How are you?" they say, "Fine, thank you." No other options. Okay. Or, "What's your name?" "My name is Alham." So without thinking, they become very, very fluent. Teachers like a role model for students to imitate. Also, teachers leading and controlling student language behavior. The characteristics: vocabulary is taught through dialogues, and the dialogues are learned through imitation and repetition a lot. So they repeat after the teacher. The teacher says the sentence, the students repeat it again and again, many times. Grammar is taught implicitly. So they don't know the rule, but they know they have to say it in this situation. Everyday language interaction is emphasized. So they know, for example, when they see someone, how to introduce themselves, or when they want to go shopping, how to ask for the cost, or how to ask for the thing that they want, or for the place about the things that they are looking for. L1 is forbidden, no first language. And the evaluations would be like, questions are not integrated, and each question type is dedicated to one skill. So this is listening, they listen, answer to the question. Finish, speaking. They have the dialogue, they memorize the dialogue, and they talk. And mostly it's on speaking because communication is important. So memorization, expansion, repetition, transformation trees, completing the dialogues are the techniques that they use in this method. I don't know what happened. I cannot see it well.
Ma'am, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Could you please answer me? Is the foreign language and target language is a synonym for?
Target language means the language that they learn. Maybe it's second, maybe it's foreign. The second language is the language that out of the class, in the community, they have the chance to listen. They can have the chance to practice. Okay, that is second language. Like studying Urdu in Pakistan. So they can speak it outside the school. But foreign language, like your friend, she teaches Spanish in Canada. So they only practice it in the class. It's a foreign language. Not everybody outside the class talk about it.
The language which can be spoken easily or commonly is a second language or first language?
Yes,
Second
out of the
language.
class. Out of the class.
Okay.
Like learning English in Canada. So out of the class, there's a chance to practice. So that's a second language. Like a Chinese family, they study English in Canada. Their first language is Chinese, but they learn English, which can practice everywhere, because in Canada, especially in Ontario, everybody speaks in English. So that's second language. Is it clear now?
Okay. Yes, it is clear now. Thank you.
Sure. So now TPR, total physical response. In this method, the student will learn the target language by listening commands, like open the door, clap, touch your nose, close the door, stand up, sit down, okay? Read your books. And what happens? Total physical TPR response. Here's the total physical movement. Also, we have both, but TPR stands for response. So what the students do, they just follow the commands and do the commands. So when you ask them read their book, they open their books and start reading. Touch your nose, they touch their nose. Point to the ceiling, they point to the ceiling. So physically responds. And the instructions should be very clear. The teacher needs to explain what will happen and how they have to do it. So first of all, teacher is the sample, give the instructions. They practice it with the teacher 2 or 3 times, or maybe more, depends on the class. And then there's a sequence. Then the teacher stops and just asks them to do, and check the students if they follow the instructions correctly. But always it's on the order, like read your book, touch your nose, point to the ceiling, close the door. So they do it together with the help of the teacher. First, the teacher do all the comments and the students look and they see what happened. Then they do it all to the whole class with the teacher, they follow the comments. And then later, teacher just ask and check the students, but in the same order, When you check with your students, they have learned, everything is fine, then you can jumble it. So we can say, first you can say, instead of read your book, you say touch your nose, then you say read your book, close the door, point to the ceiling. Make it a bit challenging for your students. So basically, teacher is the director and students are imitator. They follow it. And it's non-verbal action because it's physically their response. So it works great with young learners. Teachers should be very enthusiastic, and it is fun and humorous, and it boosts the energy because it just move up activities. It's basically on vocabulary and grammatical structures are emphasized, like do this, do that. And the initial format will be given to the students. If they don't understand it, you can give the instruction even in L1, first language. So definitely the evaluation will be clear from students respond, and the techniques, comments, direct behavior, and action sequence. Later, even after practicing with the students for getting the feedback, you can even ask one of the students to give comments to the other students. So that's why it's so much fun in TPR. I believe you know what is CLT, Communicative Language Teaching. Yes? So what is CLT?
Oral expressions, so it doesn't become only it's not teacher oriented, it's more student oriented. And I guess it is more a mix. It has a little bit of everything, right? The different methods and more effective, probably. I would say.
Bravo. Yes, exactly. That's so true. So the main purpose of this method is for students to communicate through linguistic forms. The students should also know when and where to use each function. So they become fluent and accurate. So just knowing the subject is not enough to be fluent. So both fluent and accurate. They know how to speak formally or how can they speak informally with their friends. The role of the teacher is like a facilitator, that she creates the situation. I mean, the teacher creates the situation in which the students can use the function. And also she's an advisor, I'm sorry. She's an advisor, answer the questions, monitors the students and their performance, trying to engage all the students in conversation. put them in groups and in pairs, which help the weaker students to practice also. They give time for all the students to practice together. The characteristic is the situation is authentic. So authenticity of the situation and the materials are important. And it should be purposeful. So it's not just following mechanically. No, it should be purposeful. And the student understands what are the functions, when to use it, how to use it, where to use it. Why? Because in their real life, they can use what they have learned in the class. They drill some parts like information gap, choices, and students give feedback. And the teacher gives feedback to the students. Learners' feeling has been taken into account by creating motivating atmosphere, and students feel like they're learning something new. So all the students assess themselves, and at the end of the class, they just review what they have learned in this session. So they have a good sense of achievement. Students works in pairs, so there's a high interactions between the students, and it boosts, of course, their confidence. Mostly functions they emphasize which should move from simpler to more complex. So we always, for teaching, we always start from known to unknown, activate their what they know, then lead them to the unknown part that we need to teach. The same way is from easy to difficult. We start to practice or to teach the easy part, then make it little by little more challenging for the students. All the skills are of equal importance. So it's not only focus is not only on speaking, but also listening, reading, and writing. Because if they want to become fluent and accurate, they should know all the skills in the language. L1 is allowed, but judiciously, not a lot. Maybe sometimes for clarification or giving instructions. Evaluation both on fluency and accuracy, and techniques, authentic materials, language games, pictures, stories, role plays, different variety activities to boost the energy and engage the students in the class. Content and language integrated learning. This is very important that you practice in TESOL, that all the skills are integrated. They are not different skills. When we want to learn a language, so we need to study and practice all the skills. And all the skills help you to understand it better. So it's impossible just teach listening. And then one session teach speaking, one session teach reading or writing. They're all integrated. So you give input to your students through listening and reading. When they listen to something, when they read something, so they understand the context, they understand vocabulary, they understand the structure. Then you can ask for the output through speaking and writing. So they're all integrated. So in this method, the purpose and goal is for students to learn both the content and the language. It's teacher's duty to create a balance between both. It's not only understood practicing the skills, but also the content, comprehension part. It's not always linguistic vocabulary and grammar, but also they comprehend what's going on. So it's top down and bottom up. Are you familiar with top down and bottom up approach? Anybody knows? So top-down is working on content comprehension. Let me give you an example. You play an audio for your students. Then you ask them some comprehension questions to check with your students. They understand what's the listening about, what happened. So works on their comprehension. That is top-down. Then there are some new words. You want to practice the pronunciation. You want to practice the structure or review the structure. That is bottom-up. So it's linguistic aspect. So in integrated learning skill, you work on both comprehension and linguistic. We just never ask them to memorize the vocabulary and then do exercises for the grammar part. But first, they have to comprehend the content, the context. Then we help them by teaching vocabulary and structure. This is the best way of learning language. So the teacher is a scaffolder, meaning that he should scaffold between both content and language by designing activities to work on both. So there are some activities like comprehension questions, detail questions, true, false sentences, which is based on the content, understanding the content. On the other hand, fill in the blanks, rewrite the sentences with the given words, working on the linguistic part. The characteristics, it needs to be taught through authentic texts and materials like audio, visual aids, really, and these things, because it should be understandable for the students. And it's based on their real life. So it's helpful. They can use what they learn in the class out of the class. Activities need to include both content and language. It is assumed that since the students are tackling both content and language, it is motivational and enthusiastic. So it's not only doing exercise, but also they have discussions, they have brainstorming, they have group working, they have pair working, they have to do project, they share their ideas, they share their experience. Besides, they have linguistic part as well to do some exercises. So it's more fun. And the evaluation, students will be evaluated based on their knowledge of the content and language competency, and techniques like, as I said, dicto class, journals, projects, group working, and team working.
What is dictoglass? Gloss, sorry. Dictogloss.
Dicto class is like you read the context for your students, or students read the content text, okay? And then they say it in their own words, That's dicto class. Or they listen to the audio, then start to say to you in their own words. So even you can ask them to write about it in their own words. You check their comprehension. That's dicto class. Is it clear now?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So what's happening now, actually we use eclectic method. You can choose, the teacher decides what method to use based on the need of the students and the aim of the class. Sometimes you drill a part with your students. Sometimes you ask your students to repeat some sentences because they have problem in pronunciation. Sometimes you put the students in groups to do a project. Sometimes you ask your students just to listen and shadow that listening, like audiolingual. So it's based on the need of the class and the aim of the class. Okay? So you choose different methods for teaching different skills. So there are frequent changes in method. That is eclectic method. Just choose from different methods to help your students to learn better. And it is very flexible. So flexibility is implementation. Let me give you an example. Like teaching dialogue. Once for lower level, like a starter, you ask your students to listen to the audio and repeat. You check their pronunciation and intonation like audiolingual. Because they are starters. They need to listen and repeat. Then for PI, pre-intermediate method, what did you do? They listen, and then you ask them some comprehension questions to check their comprehension. Then you teach them the new words and ask them to fill in the blanks. So you work on both the linguistic and comprehension. For upper level, they listen, and then you put them in pairs. You put them in pairs to make up similar dialogue, but use the functions. So you just change your method. That is eclectic method. Is that clear to everyone?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. So what about techniques? We know the review approach, we review methods, now techniques. Techniques is like approach was theory, method, put them in action. Techniques are like tools, okay? So techniques describe specific practical classroom tasks and activities. Like silent viewing for example, silent viewing when we use video material. So you play the video part, but with no sound. So what is your technique? It's silent viewing. Then you ask the students, can you guess what are they talking about? Or what are the words? Or what function they use? Can you adopt it? Can you make the conversation? So use different techniques like listen and act, listen and say, listen and tell, find differences, watch and say, watch and act, or different techniques to teach and practice with your students, also to get the feedback. Like, I guess you are familiar with PPP, presentation, practice, production. So in this method, you present, then you practice with your students, start from control to freer. Control means they have, there is only one answer. There's only one answer. There are no choices. Like put these words in blanks. So they have to choose the words from the list or from the box and put it in the blanks. That is control. Then freer practice, like put the students in the situation and ask them to use the words to talk about it. Or while they are making a conversation, they use the words. Or use the structures and make a dialogue or write a paragraph. That is freer. That is freer. Production is a part that they have to use what they learn in their real life. So if they have learned like past tense, they need to share about their last trip. They need to share talking about something or share something which had happened to them. Like what happened in your last birthday, where did you go for your last vacation, and these things. So they talk about their real life. Or if the target language of the session was present tense, simple present tense, so they start to talk about their daily activity. That is production. So that's the technique, PPP, presentation, practice, production. Another example I can give you, like TTT. TTT stands for test, teach, test. So it's an approach to teaching where learner first complete a task or activity without help from the teacher. Then you go through that activity based on the problems you see, the teacher plans and presents. Then again, you get the feedback. Like you show them a picture and said, okay, what can you see in this picture? Then they said there's a beach. Okay, look here. What are they doing? They said they are swimming. What else? They have no idea. So first you get the test, how much they know. Then you teach them like surfing, sunbathing, sunscreen, sand castle. You teach them. After that, you give them a worksheet and said, okay, I want you to match the vocabulary with the pictures. So they match sand castle with the picture, sunscreen with the picture. So again, you take a test that they have learned. Test, teach, test. TBL, which is very popular nowadays, is task-based learning. Okay. Task-based language learning is an approach which focuses on the use of authentic language and students doing meaningful tasks, okay, by using the target language. For example, visiting the doctor. So one of the students gets the role of the doctor, the other students, client or the patient, and they have the dialogue. Okay, or shopping in store. So one of them becomes shop system and the other is the customer. And they have the interview or talking. So it's very authentic. And assessment is primarily based on task outcome. So how can they complete the task? How well they can talk? How fluent, how accurate with correct pronunciation. Or when you ask them, okay, now you are on a trip, where do you want to go? And one of them said, I want to go to Paris. The other one said, I want to go to Dubai. The other said, I want to go to Rio de Janeiro. Okay, good. Now Google it. What can you do in these places? And they Google and they find, okay, I can go to Sea Aquarium. I can go to Future Science Museum. I can go to different malls in Dubai. In Paris, I can watch, I can go for Eiffel Tower and museums and sailing. And in Rio de Janeiro, I can go to festivals. And so they find it, they Google it and find it. Good. Now I want you to write a letter to your friend and tell your friend what you're doing in there. So it's authentic. There is another article about TBL task-based that I'm going to share the link with you in the chat box right after stop sharing my PowerPoint. It's good to know. So in TBL, there are 3 phases: pre, while, post. So in pre, basically, you put the students in the context, activate their background knowledge, and you present the lesson. In while phase, while task phase, it's a time that students practice in pairs or in groups, and teacher monitors them just to be sure they learn everything and they understand it. After practicing, being monitored by teachers, and they receive feedback, then they receive feedback. Then it gets to post-task phase. Post-task phase is a part that the teacher gets the feedback. and reflects on her teaching, how well they have learned. So there is a cycle actually, pre, while, post. If they have some problems in post and they cannot use the target language, so it means some problem in presentation or in practice part. So again, you need to present and you practice. In this case, there are some golden tips for choosing correct method or techniques for your class. The very first one is student needs. What is the need of the students? You are in the class for to become fluent in the language. You're in the class for taking international exams like IELTS or Cambridge exams or TOEFL or something. Is it a business English class? So what is the needs? Based on their needs, you can prepare material and choose your method. Self-managed learning, communication skills, interpersonal skills, critical thinking, and creativity. Do you remember those C's for 21st century? So it's not only you as a teacher to be creative, also give a chance to your students to be creative. And thinking about the lesson, putting in pairs, putting in groups, doing project. Give them the issues, give them the problems, let's they find different solutions. Have variety of activities to encourage them to communicate, not only verbally, orally, but also in written form, and give them time, thinking time, based on their pace, they learn. So they need time, thinking time to assess themselves and practice. At the end of each session, they need to have self-assessment, how well I learn. And we never forget learner autonomy. They have responsibility for learning. So that's why I said, Google it. What can you do in Paris or in Dubai or Rio de Janeiro? So they need to take the responsibility for their learning. These are the golden tips that we always keep in mind when we want to plan for the class. So when you want to design a curriculum or plan a curriculum, it's good to see the different models. And based on the needs and the aim of the class, you can choose the correct material, authentic material. Okay? And how it works. Environment is also important. Is it online? Is it on site? Is it in the school? Or it's private? But all of them, students should be active, not passive. It should be student-centered. And there should be a coherence in your curriculum. So integrated skills, all four skills should be practiced. Teacher-student interaction, of course it's needed, but also don't forget students interactions, how students can do projects together, collaborations, variety of assessment. It's not only midterm summative, it's only midterm quizzes and final. Each session we have reflection on the lesson, how well they have learned, and getting feedback. Now, thank you so far, but still we have time. I want to share something with you guys from Canvas. Do you have any questions? It's the time to ask me.
I know there's
You
the best
have
material.
the video on YouTube.
Okay, ma'am, but the best material is put on PowerPoint slides.
Okay.
There are lots of things that are available on Canvas platform, but the PowerPoint slides are much important for upcoming midterm test and final. and for the research paper also. So we all need these PowerPoint slides. I asked the same questions to Sir in previous classes, but he denied to provide
Okay,
all the PPTs. Could you please
I
provide it
see.
all?
Oh, wait, well, I'm actually, you need to ask TESOL. So why don't you send an email? I'm gonna tell them too, but you send an email as well. Okay, I'll definitely say. So
Okay.
guys, for this week, you go to modules in your Canvas. Can you see it? Yes. So here it is. TESOL method. Oh, okay. Methodologies, grammar translation and direct method. TESOL methodology, audio lingual, communicative, and the others. And TESOL immersion method and output-based curriculum methods. Could you see that? So you have all of them. And when you click on the video that we watched together, it's uploaded here. And it talks about methods. Here, you can see it. Then, so you have it. You have a paragraph about, but definitely about the short definition of each method. But you need to watch the video in YouTube as well. I'm gonna share with you the links for the articles. There are 2 articles I highly recommend to study. This one is for TBL. Okay, Control C. I guess you have it in the chat box, yes? Can you see it?
Yes.
Good. So copy it. And this one for approaches and methods and techniques. What's the difference? Control C. It's a very, both only, I mean, it's not very long, 1 or 2 pages. This is another article. You have that one too?
Yeah.
Good.
Madam, I have copied both the links and have pasted on Word document.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Good job. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your ideas. And I'm going to see you tomorrow. Yes?
Tomorrow will
No.
be Sunday. I guess you will
Tomorrow.
gonna see us the day after tomorrow.
I think today is Friday, isn't it?
No, we
No,
are
it's
one day
Saturday in
ahead.
Pakistan.